Hey guys, Claire here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about all things Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry's book, Spare, was named Amazon's top-selling book of 2023. The Invictus Foundation has shared that over 3,000 people have already signed up to be volunteers for next year's Invictus Games in Whistler. A federal judge orders documents naming Jeffrey Epstein's associates to be unsealed in January of 2024. I'm wondering if a certain someone will be thinking of that this Christmas season. King Charles's charity is being forced to return cash given for an alternative medicine clinic. Good Lord, how many cash for schemes can one person be involved in? There was the cash for honors, then there was the crazy bags of cash that he received. Then there was the latest scheme with him getting money from the estates of people in the UK who died without a will. Now this, and he is never ever going to be held accountable for the schemes that he has been engaged in. Grifters gon' grift. The fallout from Prince Harry's latest court victory has been interesting to watch.
And what are your thoughts this evening then, Steve, on Prince Harry himself? Not simply the battle that he has gone through, or indeed his experiences at the hands of the press in this country and in the United States, but the role that he is playing, because of course it's not just Mirror Group newspapers, is it? The Sun, the Mail. You know, this course could have some. This case, I should say, could have some pretty significant repercussions for the entire industry.
I think I'm not a royalist, but I have great admiration for Prince Harry for not entering into the Faustian pact that the royal family had entered into before with the tabloid press. He broke that, and it was a very bold, brave thing to do. And I think there will be repercussions. You know, we want an accountable press that's publicly accountable. The government, and by the way, Leveson did not want any government involvement. It's supposed to be an independent press regulation, independent of government and independent of the newspapers. We don't have that now. We have a press regulatory board, which is a sham, which is called IPSO, and it's run by the press, and it protects themselves, and it's window dressing.
Back the crown. Their work is not finished. We need a season 7, we need a season 8. One thing I will always delight in is the public flogging of Piers Morgan. So yesterday, Prince Harry won his court case against the Mirror Group newspapers. This has been a long trial. I spoke about this in May. His team were able to prove that the Daily Mirror hacked his phone on 15 occasions in order to get a story. He brought forward 33 cases. They only needed 10 for him to win the entire court case, but actually his team were able to prove that more than half of the stories came by way of hacking. Here's the plot twist. The Daily Mirror, who I guess in an attempt to take the pressure off of themselves, publicly admitted that yes, some of the stories came from hacking, but actually some of the stories were also leaked to them by members of the royal family. Harry has spoken before about how he believes the royal family or members of the royal family have leaked stories to the press. This technically vindicates him because his own defendant is basically corroborating what he's been saying for years. Anyways, back to Piers Morgan. In his statement, the judge basically concluded that yes, Prince Harry had been hacked, and also that senior officials of the Daily Mirror would have known about this. One of the senior officials obviously being Piers Morgan. He released one stupid statement today talking about how he has never hacked a phone and he never sanctioned anybody to hack a phone, but it's looking very peak for him. Because he's a liar. I know Christmas is next week, but Christmas for me will be the day that the courts publicly announced that Piers Morgan not only hacked, but knew about hacking that was happening under him during his time at the Daily Mirror.
It's a big victory for Prince Harry.
Good afternoon, Emily. Good afternoon, Tom. Make no mistake, this is a major victory, a day of vindication for Prince Harry. It's also a day of shame and humiliation for Mirror Group newspapers. For the tabloid press in general, I believe that this is a moment as grave as the terrible case of Millie Dowler, the young girl in Surrey who was abducted and murdered while tabloid journalists were hacking her phone, allowing her mother to believe that she was still alive. It is as serious as that. And Prince Harry will take particular interest, I think, in the fact that the judge, Mr. Justice Fancourt, said there was an aggravating factor that information about what was going on rose as high as the executive suites and indeed the boardroom of Mirror Group newspapers. So there's potentially criminal behavior there. The costs, the damages that have been accrued and assessed at £140,600, they're quite modest, but that is not the point. The point is that he's managed to prove that his phone was being hacked and stories were being blagged. That's, by other words, using illicit and deceitful means to obtain information about him, which should not have been done. He only really had to prove one of those cases. He proved 15 out of 33, and that is quite enough for him. And the statement that he issued, which his barrister read out, I mean, it had his fingerprints, it had his tone of voice, whether he wrote it or he dictated it, talking about vendetta journalism. This is, without any doubt, his day in court. He has triumphed, and I think there'll be some serious meetings going on at other newspaper groups because the implications of this judgment today are widespread and very serious for the British press.
What Piers Morgan should do is he should be open and straightforward with the police, and he should tell them what he knows and what he was involved in.
Have you ever spoken to Morgan about this? Have you had an opportunity to?
No, I don't have any contact with Piers Morgan. I mean, I'd happily speak to him, but I don't really know him. I mean, he was editor-in-chief of the Sunday Mirror. I mean, he claims he wasn't, but he
does
was.
claim he wasn't. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and he's
he
vigorous.
was.
He says this over and over again. He keeps saying he was only editor of the Daily Mirror.
Well, I can tell you, having worked there for 7 years, I remember when he took over, and my boss saying he's the editor-in-chief when he went in to see the actual editor of the Sunday Mirror, called Tina Weaver. So I don't know why he says these things, because there are plenty of witnesses who are credible, like myself. The judge said that yesterday. And there's plenty of documentary evidence to prove that what he's saying is inaccurate.
How many do you think you hacked?
What, individual people?
Yeah.
In the hundreds.
And did you, while you were doing it, did you wrestle with the kind of morality of it?
Yeah, of course.
So even at the time, it wasn't that you were just thinking, oh, this is what we do to get a story. But at the time, you sort of thought this was wrong and I'm wrestling with it.
Yes, absolutely. I have to say, though, it was one of those things that takes a little while for you to kind of really realise what's going on around you, because it was so endemic in the culture. It was, as the judge found, it was the way in which their news gathering operated. So, towards the end of my time at Mirror Group, which was sort of 2004, I was very conflicted about it. Maybe quite a sad person, really. Split me down the middle, and in the end, it's sort of those feelings are what led me to blowing the whistle some years later, which I did initially in 2012, and then it became public knowledge really in sort of 2014.
It's self-evident, it's obvious, but you would have been listening to some very private, very personal stuff on occasion. I mean, that's what made it salacious and interesting in terms of stories. Sure. And so it must have been quite a thing to listen to, some of these things.
It was harrowing at times, yeah. Yeah, and the worst thing about it was the way it was so commodified. I'd pass something up the chain to my bosses, which had been, really kind of resonated with me, and their reaction would be, fantastic, there's a story, wicked, let's clear the front page for that. There was no thought, there was no care given to the individuals involved. They were just seen as pieces of meat.
This is a story which involves a lot of people on both sides of it, in the press and obviously the victims of it and so on. There is, of course, one person who is getting a lot of attention today, and that is Piers Morgan, the former editor of the Mirror. He's spoken this afternoon, continuing to deny all knowledge. Are his denials... You worked at the Mirror Group, I think, when he was editor still?
Yeah.
Are his denials credible?
Utterly implausible. There's simply no way that Piers could not have known what was going on his watch. If his deputy editor from the Daily Mirror, in Tina Weaver, who went over to the Sunday Mirror and who taught me, knew all about it, if the people on his desks knew about it, if Mirror Group was spending around £1 million a year on unlawful information gathering and he was signing it off, if his chief executive officer in Sly Bailey knew about it and concealed it, as did the head of legal, Paul Vickers, the other senior lawyer, a guy called Marcus Partington, who was found to have not only known about it since at least 2003, which is when I became aware that he knew about it shortly after I'd been inducted. There's an incident in which he walks into the office one day quite breezily in the morning and addresses my boss, but speaks to me, looking at me directly, and says, "Good morning, have I got any messages today?" With a bit of a smirk. And, you know, I read between the lines, and I was shocked, actually, even then, that the legal department knew. But that all just speaks to how cosy it was, how encouraged it was, how accepted and useful it was.
Because presumably your assumption or working assumption would be that other newspapers were doing the same thing, and so therefore you kind of had to do it, because if you didn't, you would be at a commercial and competitive disadvantage by comparison to them.
I think that's a fair thing to say. I think probably there's something akin to a bit of an arms race between the different Fleet Street titles, and history's shown, of course, that it was endemic elsewhere. And yeah, it seemed, well, it was put across to me as a commercial necessity.
I mean, Morgan will obviously continue to say what he's saying, and that he's said again today, you know, he's never personally hacked a phone, which is perhaps more credible, that he didn't personally do it. But you're saying that the idea that he didn't have any knowledge of it is fantastical. It just couldn't be.
It's fanciful, yeah.
There are just some of the newspapers I've kept down the years.
David Seymour was group political editor of the Daily Mirror. He told the court he saw Piers Morgan listening to a hacked voicemail. Today, the judge said he accepted that evidence without hesitation.
He pressed the button and played it, and out came Paul McCartney's voice singing "And I Love Her." Piers was sort of laughing about it. I can't think of any other explanation other than it was something that had been hacked. The intrusion on somebody's private, something that's very private, I don't know how most people feel, but I suspect they feel like I would, that if that was me, you know, what was that message I'd left for my wife?
Trisha Burnell knows the pain of illegal press intrusion.
He raised a gun and shot Claire at the back of their head.
When her daughter Claire was murdered, she was hacked by other tabloids. Now she's considering a claim against Mirror Group.
It was violation beyond the grave, and that's what really, really hurt, and I'm still so angry about it, because now I've heard so much more, and it wasn't just one paper.
Graham Johnson was once investigations editor at the Sunday Mirror and admitted once hacking a phone. He now exposes tabloid wrongdoing and gave evidence at the trial.
It's bittersweet. It's sweet in as much as the judge has found that the evidence I gave was right. However, it's bitter in as much as I don't want to see the Mirror go under.
Vindicating and affirming is how Prince Harry describes today's ruling. Its significance goes far beyond his personal battle against the tabloids, but it will no doubt give him a boost in the legal action he's bringing against two other newspaper groups.
Actually see criminal action after this ruling?
Well, the possibility of a criminal investigation does now loom. Prince Harry has called on the Met Police to do their duty for the British public and investigate. We spoke to the Met Police. They told us that they will carefully consider today's judgment, but currently there is no ongoing investigation. But serious questions remain for Piers Morgan, one of the UK's best-known journalists. A string of witnesses told the court that he knew about phone hacking, and today the judge said that he believed them. Next, there are the implications for Prince Harry's other similar claims against the Sun and the Mail. Interestingly, some of the private investigators named in this litigation also feature in those other cases. Finally, Mirror Group Newspapers has already spent around £100 million settling hacking claims. This judgment could open the door for many more, so that could be dangerously expensive, let alone the implications for their reputation.
Well, Piers Morgan may be telling the truth, but he never personally hacked a phone. But of course, that isn't the allegation against him. And rather overlooked in some of the coverage has been the fact that back in 2015, the Mirror settled a case involving Paul Gascoigne and about 7 other celebrities for the best part of £2 million, when the QC at the time admitted. They settled that out of court almost at the last minute, where their QC admitted that managers and editors, and Piers Morgan was an editor at the time, knew about phone hacking. So that related to a period, in fact, when Piers Morgan, was certainly editor.
Morgan said, well, what do you think when you heard that? When you heard him say, You know, I never asked anyone to hack a phone. I never hacked a phone. What did you make of those words?
I thought several things. I thought he was telling lies. I thought it was interesting that he didn't come to court to...
He would say he was never called, of course.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. In the British justice system, witnesses are not called, usually have to volunteer to give evidence, and he had ample opportunity to volunteer. But also, you know, if he has lied, and I think he has, he made the same admissions under oath at Leveson, which is a criminal offence under the Public Inquiries Act.
Rachel Johnson, sister of Boris Johnson, has an issue with Prince Harry holding the UK press to task. Not surprising. We've seen photos of her attending a Christmas soiree with other members of the UK press who are equally as noxious as Piers and her brother. This woman is also the same person who wrote the article saying that Meghan's exotic DNA will ruin the Windsor white bloodline. She's just as bad as the rest of them.
Do you think that as a result of the judgment that went against Mirror Group newspapers, we're going to see some sort of state regulation of the press? I genuinely hope not. I don't want the press to be in the last chance saloon at all. I want to see newspapers thrive. This is my industry, and I think it's in all our interests that we have a thrive. And we've got the most wonderful newspapers in the world in this country. You read the newspapers in the States or in France, they're very dull. They're not entertaining at all. I think that we can have both a serious and an entertaining press. And that's what I want to see survive. I don't want to see Prince Harry destroy the industry I love.
On Sunday, columnist Rachel Johnson wrote, "If there is an issue from her alleged union with Prince Harry, the Windsors will thicken their watery, thin blue blood and Spencer pale skin and ginger hair with some rich and exotic DNA."
The time I contrasted Meghan Markle with, which was a probably ill-advised piece, I contrasted the ethnic heritage of Meghan Markle with the ethnic heritage of Prince Harry. Now, of course, that was a few years ago. We wouldn't go anywhere near that now because we would be cancelled for making anything about somebody's ethnic background, the colour of their skin, completely off limits. It's off limits, rightly off limits. But
do you mean the exotic DNA piece? But that was only 4 years ago. I mean, that was in a different world.
That's a completely different world 4 years ago.
4 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
So you reckon if you'd written that now, the reaction would
I wouldn't have written exotic DNA now, because now I know, because I have been educated and I've educated myself, that exotic is a euphemism for black, which you don't dare say. And I was like, no. All I was doing was contrasting the fact that Spencer have got very pale skin and gingery hair with her gorgeous colouring. That's what I was trying to do.
People in the LBC comment section were eating Rachel up, and rightfully so. In other news, the local lawyer Julian Santos, which is part of Prince Harry's legal team, also won significant damages against the Mirror Group newspaper. So all in all, this entire case is about so much more than Prince Harry. Meghan also made a fun cameo appearance on Clever's latest video. This week we saw photos of Edward and Sophie's Christmas card. And not one person who was demanding to see Harry and Meghan's children on their Christmas card had a thing to say about Sophie and Edward's card, lacking any of their two kids.
These people are like walking contradictions to me. Like, one moment, they're like, no, Harry and Meghan children are not real. There is no Archie and Lily. They rent them. They use Rent-A-Child. Or it's, oh my gosh, you are isolating and emotionally damaging your children. Why aren't your children in your card? What? This lady's trying to say. Not even putting your kids on the Christmas card is just plain weird. There's protecting and there's isolating to the point of emotional damage. Why do you want to see these children so much? We want to see Archie and Lily because we love Meghan. We love Meghan and Harry. We love their family. But we also respect them and we understand why. And we would love to see it, but I don't need to see it. I don't feel like I have the right to see it. Great if we see it. But the way this woman is saying that them not sharing Archie and Lily with the public is isolating to the point of emotional damage. How do you come to that conclusion? Meghan and Harry provide to the children the environment they need to thrive in and the relationships with people that will protect them emotionally and that will invest in them positively. Putting their picture out to the media has only brought negativity. The same people who mock, make fun of, say racist remarks about these children want to see these children and then are like surprised that they don't see the children. It's like, how do you have the audacity to be racist and then be surprised when you don't get access to the people you're being hateful or racist towards? Like, just make it make sense. These people are just weird and like, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Something is wrong.
Just thinking about Prince Harry and the hate that him and Meghan have received over the last so many years. After yesterday's ruling, you can probably see why it's been non-stop. They are basically fighting the press, and the press are showing their vengeance. And it's been absolutely disgraceful, the amount of articles, the amount of vitriol against them. I mean, they're not doing interviews, but it looks like they're constantly doing interviews in the press. It looks like they're constantly talking about themselves. They're just getting on with their life. They're doing their project. They're royals. I do not care about their lives. Their lives do not change me. But it just shows how the press have used their power and their money to basically try and ruin their lives and put the public against them. And it's worked. If you see on Twitter, on X, the so-called hates accounts against them, it's incredible what they say about them, the amount of, they're talking about, oh, this dress looked better on her, or I mean, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, but it's non-stop. There are accounts just talking about how they hate Meghan or how they hate Harry. And, this is all pushing the whole narrative that they're ruining the royal family. No, the royal family are ruining themselves. They don't need Meghan and Harry to do that. They've created a system where Harry's lived a life, whatever life he's lived. He's had issues with the press all of his life. And the press basically don't like the fact that he's not, towing the line. He's going against them and, fighting them in court. So obviously they're just being non-stop against him. So how can anyone believe anything in those, red top press newspapers when it comes to Meghan and Harry and other celebrities as well? Because the whole phone hacking scandal, I think there's like 50 people who, and that includes obviously a lot of celebrities who are part of this case. This is just the beginning. Well, it all began with the Levinson inquiry, but this is the beginning of the next wave, which could bring down these papers, and rightly so, because what they did was criminal. And if Mr. Piers Morgan wants to deny that he was part of it, go to court with it. He's right in saying that he probably never hacked a phone himself, but he was editor. He knew it was going on. I think the whole culture at that time, everyone knew everything. And, it's all coming out now. Various people who were part of the court case, they're talking about how, it's impossible that he didn't know. So he's been lying as well the whole time. In court, he lied. He's perjured himself, and he's continuing pushing that narrative against Meghan and Harry. And it's just, how can anyone take any of these people seriously now?
Hi, British media. You seem to have decided not to report the fact that a judge found against you yesterday. Isn't that strange? Because it kind of feeds into a narrative that people like me have, that you tell us what we should think. So you don't mention that report. You never spoke about Dan Wootton. He's disappeared, hasn't he? You barely talk about the COVID inquiry, and everything you write about the government has got a spin on it. But I'm sure you're not trying to control our narrative, are you? Because that would just be awful, wouldn't it? As if you are. That is exactly what you're doing, as you were.
I don't care about the royal family, but I will always tune in to a discussion when people talk about how Kate Middleton hates Meghan Markle. Right, like the only reason British people hate Meghan Markle is because she's black. But Kate Middleton, she is the only British person that's ever allowed to hate Meghan Markle. I'm so serious. If I was Kate Middleton, I would despise Meghan Markle. Just walk with me, okay? When I was little, that was like when Will and Kate mania like really hit the world because they got married. I remember I saw this Lifetime documentary of like Will and Kate's love story, and it was brutal. I remember watching that and just believing that like love was dead. And I was like 10. I just remember like he dogged her. Like she had to sacrifice her dignity, self-worth, any modicum of self-respect that she had in order to chase William. The media called her Waity Katie because he would just like go out with girls, never propose to her. He like broke up with her a bunch of times. Like he just remained adamant about never committing to her, and like a kicked dog, she came back to him every single time. And so you married him. You married the guy that made you look like a fool in front of your entire country. No one respects you. And he cheats on you. He's balding. He could get hair plugs. He just chooses not to. And here comes the younger, more charismatic brother. People say he has Diana's spirit. People say, oh, we can tell the older one's Prince Charles's boy, but this is Diana's son. He comes in with a woman that's prettier than you. She has her dignity intact. She had a career before him, and she only bagged him in a year. I'd go feral. I'd black out in rage. Like, I would only see red. Oh, you'd have to sedate me. You'd have to sedate me. Like, you would literally, like, straitjacket. Like, I'm so serious. It's honestly a true testament of her resilience that she hasn't killed herself. Like, seriously? The way William treats Kate Middleton, like, you would think she was Hitler in a past life. I'm so serious. Like, what did she do to deserve Prince William? Like, that's some generational cursed shit. Like, she must have had an ancestor that was truly so brutal that a generational curse hit her like a ton of bricks in the face in order to get Prince William. Like, oh yeah, Kate Middleton's the only person in the UK that I'm like, yeah, let her hate Meghan Markle. She doesn't get much, so let her have this.
Ho, ho, ho. If you think it's childish to still believe in me, remember, there are adults that still believe in the Daily Mail.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.